Solutions to the Dropout Crisis, addressing the dropout crisis one strategy at a time. Brought to you by the National Dropout Prevention Center Network with support from K-12 and in partnership with Clemson Broadcast Productions. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to Solutions. Here we are, it's summertime, school is out, and it's time to have a program that's going to be a little different. For the next 2 months, June and July, we're going to have a special summer edition of Solutions. And I think you're going to really enjoy it. We spend the year going to conferences and workshops all over the country and meet the most amazing people. And now we're going to give you that opportunity to meet them as well. Joining me today is Karen Withington, Assistant Director of the National Dropout Prevention Center. And Karen, it's going to be fun to see some of our friends today. So many of them are here to join us, to bring our viewers the great ideas that they share at the conferences.
Yeah, it's really great that we're going to have a chance to bring these little snippets from the people who are actually at the conferences, and we put them together so that we can share some of that excitement with our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun idea because we've got 4 segments today, and I think we're going to all enjoy this. And it's a treat. We don't have too much homework for you unless you want to pursue, and I think people will. They're going to want to pursue some of the things that they hear today. Well, we're starting out this first segment on a topic that I think often gets bypassed as we talk about dropout prevention and academics and learning and so forth, and that's the whole topic of social emotional learning. It's hugely important in dropout prevention. And so I think we had 2 wonderful ladies come to our conference in Myrtle Beach, and they met with our director, Dr. Sandy Addis. Can you tell us about them, Karen?
Right. So this first segment we're going to share with you has 2 guests, Dr. Stacey DeWitt, who's the CEO of Connect with Kids, and Ms. Elayne Bennett, who's president of Best Friends Foundation. They were both at the 2016 National Youth At-Risk Forum in Myrtle Beach. And Dr. Sandy Addis, director of the National Dropout Prevention Center, was able to sit down a little bit and talk with them about the social and emotional learning. And he began by talking about some of the changes in our current culture.
Really, 2 things are going on in our culture right now. Number one, we've seen a shift over the last several decades, a move from a high priority on intrinsic value systems, on internal motivations, to what psychologists call extrinsic value systems. We're more focused on outcomes, data, materialism, competition. And that shift in society is causing some issues with our children, with our communities, and how we're operating as a group. You take technology, which is a very sort of extrinsic tool that promotes competition, promotes comparison, promotes materialism, and you layer that on the shift that we're already seeing, and it starts to get interesting and complicated.
I'm sure it does. Elayne, the Best Friends Foundation works with young people directly to assist them to be successful both in their lives and in school. What are you seeing in the way of culture change?
Well, I agree with Stacey wholeheartedly. Our culture has definitely taken a downward trend. It has never been as sexualized as it is now. We see the impact on girls, young girls particularly, the pop music, what the messages that are being put out there, and of course so easily retrievable, as Stacey just said, through the virtual world, through the internet, has had an impact on our children. There's very little talk about character education now, and very little talk about intrinsic worth, as you mentioned.
Good point. Stacey, what does Connect with Kids offer to help us with young people adapting to and trying to be resilient toward these changes that could otherwise derail them?
We work in 3 major areas. We work with social and emotional learning. So one of the solutions we believe is to broaden the scope and work with the whole child inside school systems. For many, many children now, particularly children that are in underserved populations, school is their base. School is where they can go to get the resources they need, not just academically, but the developmental resources they need to become happy, healthy human beings that are effective and have good relationships and have the social and emotional skills that they need to get through a complex, crowded, complicated world that we now live in. So we work with school systems to develop social and emotional learning programs, social and emotional learning websites to improve school culture, and then we also work very, very heavily in parent engagement, because we think that obviously the more you can get parents involved, the more we can educate our parents, the more we can connect parents to schools, the better off communities are. And I think the real key here in our society right now is this idea of connection, this idea of connecting human being to human being, kids feeling connected. The number one reason kids go to school is because they do feel a connection and because they do want some sort of social and emotional connection to another human being. So our schools, even though academics are extremely important and we need to look at data and outcomes, we've really kind of got to go back to the center and say, you know, we need to be focused on the whole human being. And that's what Connect with Kids is about.
Stacey, give us a description of what social emotional learning is.
Social and emotional learning is really teaching children the skills that they need to interact, to build relationships, to be self-aware about the populations around them, to understand one another, to have a value system. Some people call it character, some people call it grit. Some people, you know, it's like all kinds of mindsets, all kinds of names are out there. But the field of social and emotional learning is really an educational field that is really taking hold across the country and saying it's not enough just to treat the intellectual side of the child. We also have to look at how they're developing internally. Who are they going to become? Why does it matter what they learn? How are they going to interact in the world with other people? And when we're in such a diverse, complex society, we have to learn, in a nutshell, how not only to understand ourselves, but to understand others. And when we can learn to understand ourselves, manage our emotions, understand others, and care for one another, then, you know, we start to really move forward. And that's what social and emotional learning is about. It's about teaching those things.
Great. Elayne, tell us what you're seeing with the young people that Best Friends works with. What are you seeing and what are you all doing with these young people to help them?
Well, we've been at this since 1987, and we started at Georgetown University with a small group in DC public schools. And over the years, I have seen, sadly, a growing sense of hopelessness among students, a sense that, well, what's there for me? This has had an impact, as you so well know, Sandy, on the dropout issue. The fact that students say, well, I'm not learning anything. I don't really have a reason to be at school. I should just drop out and try to get a job somewhere. Social emotional connections are becoming fewer and fewer as students become more and more inwardly motivated with their cell phones, on the internet. There's not the sense that that friends and interpersonal relationships are as vital even. Students are preferring to stay home and go online than go out with their peers. One of the things we try to teach, and we've been successful at it, in fact our research has just shown that students who are in Best Friends or Best Men program are significantly more likely to help their friends, their peers, advise their peers to stay away from risk behavior. And our credo comes right out of Aristotle. The best kind of friend to have is that person who makes you a better person.
Elayne, I know that Best Friends and Best Men have done some specific events for young people. You've had meetings and trainings and assemblies of those people and both of educators to work with them. Give us an example of one of those events, something Best Friends and Best Men has done recently.
Just 2 weeks ago, we were at McKinley Tech High School, after school program, and we weren't quite sure how many students would stay after school. It ended up that we had standing room only. We had to actually turn away students because we didn't have enough seats, and there are some fire restrictions, which was a wonderful problem to have. It also, the temperature in the room was about 95 degrees, as is typical of old school buildings. And I thought, how are we really going to make an impact? Well, the students stayed. They were engaged. We utilize music, Sandy. We have this whole routine to Drug-Free Me called Clear Head, Clear Mind, Drug-Free, I'm Fine. And then we have other music that we've pulled in that sends a message of belonging, as you're talking about, a sense of, too, the old golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And the students, and these are all inner city students, and many of them from certainly underprivileged situations, were motivated to stand up and literally were dancing in the aisles, which was just a joy to behold. And it gives me real hope for our future, because the more I'm around young people, the more I see that hope does spring eternal, that if we can just give them something good, they sense it. They're not as jaundiced as many would have you believe. They're not as down trodden. Give them something good and they sense it and they respond.
What a great example. The two of you have spent much of your professional lives in a number of different roles, helping young people and helping others, helping educators and professionals and practitioners to help young people to be successful. If each one of you could give one piece of advice to educators, to the 400 people that are out there at our conference today, what would you say to them that would help them? Stacey?
Well, first of all, I would say thank you, because I think that they don't hear that enough. And the role that educators play right now in our society at this time, and the work that they are doing, has never been more important. I mean, when I look at educators, I look at them as the quiet army of people on the ground that are getting up every day and working with kids and helping kids, and just going through that every single day, and that commitment and that passion. That would be the first thing. And the second thing I would say is that, it's what Elayne just said. I could not agree more. Kids want to succeed. Most children want to succeed. Very few people, much less children, get up in the morning and say, I want to be a failure today. What they're looking for is a connection. What they're looking for is for someone to have their back, to care about them, to not judge them, to meet them where they are in the world that they live in. They don't have the exposure, the experiences, all the things that adults have. We're living in a very complicated world. It's difficult to navigate. And educators, even when they're tired, and even when it's tough, they actually are on the first line. They're on the front line, and often provide that connection and that opportunity. And if they can just remember that as they go through their work, that these are kids. They're just trying to survive in a culture that's difficult. And so, educators do great work. We don't say thank you enough. And almost all educators got into it because they love children. And if we can remember that, then I think we're in a good place.
Great message. Elayne, you were one of those educators for a long time. What would you say to them?
Well, I appreciate Stacey certainly inspired me today. I got my blood kind of rolling again because I was feeling tired. When you have 200 students and then I've got another 300 next week, and I appreciate the fact you said thank you. Because you're right, many teachers don't hear thank you enough. And the fact that the teachers who are coming to my seminar are going to have to get on the bus, they're going to have to ride an hour, some of them, You've got snow and you've got lots of other issues, but they're doing it. They don't have to do it, but they're doing it because they want something extra for their kids. There is that love there. And true educators do feel the passion. They do want to make a difference. And often they don't have the Stacey's out there saying, hey, thank you, and wake up and shake off the tiredness, because there are little human lives out there waiting to hear from you. Because often, if you don't say it, as a teacher, they'll never hear it. Right. I mean, the school is the last best hope for changing our society. And the two most important indicators of a society is, what are you teaching the children and who is teaching them? And if we don't pay attention to the very important issues of school connectedness and the social emotional component that you so eloquently described today, we're going to lose our students. And in so doing, we may lose our society. It's just that serious.
And I want to really piggyback on that, because I just couldn't agree more. We were joking out in the hall that maybe we were, separated at birth. But this is such a truism in our society. I mean, school, I talked to a kid the other day, and I was interviewing some children, and he's a great kid. And I looked at him and I said, if you didn't come to this school every day, what would you have in your life? And he said, my life would be completely different. And I said, why? And he said, because I live in a place where there's not very many positive things going on. But I can come here, and I know a group of people care about me, and they want me to succeed, and they want me to have a better life, and they're with me. And I said, well then, how do you leave school and go back into your neighborhood and all that not go away? And he said, because when I leave school, I remember that I was there. It feels like I never left. That community stays with me, really in my heart. And so it's the flip of a child who comes out of a really strong family. That's a protective factor against all the problems that they will face in the world. But schools now, and the programs that are going on in schools, and some of the educators that are so caring and so committed are doing programs in schools where these kids, school becomes their protective factor, right? And allows them to go out and navigate the world in a different way.
It's their safe place.
So it's their safe place. And when schools can be children's safe place, we make great strides. And there are so many, the one thing I have to say is there's so many good people out there on the ground in that quiet army, and there's so many good programs in place, and there are so many good things going on in the schools, and we need to be talking about that in America. We need to be talking about that. We need to be talking about assets rather than deficits.
Wow. Ladies, some great messages for the Quiet Army, and we value them. That's who we try to serve too. We've been very fortunate to have Stacey DeWitt of Connect with Kids and Elayne Bennett from the Best Friends and Best Men Foundations, and we value their comments. We appreciate you, ladies. Thank you for taking your time on Solutions today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Sandy.
Certainly.
What a great piece that was. I found that really interesting. And Karen, what I found really interesting was the discussion about intrinsic motivation. And that's a common thread, I think, for the next three segments. See if you don't agree. And so the first one, or the second one really, the next one coming up, is with two people that are near and dear to my heart. And I'd like you to introduce them to the four people in our audience who have not met them.
Okay, our next segment is all about process communication, and that is reaching and communicating with people through a process that actually taps into what motivates them. And we'll hear from Joe and Judy Pauley. They're longtime friends of the National Dropout Prevention Center. The Pauleys have conducted hundreds and professional development workshops all over the nation, and we've been lucky enough to have them at a lot of our conferences and events. They're just fantastic, and this process communication method that they talk about is very effective and very interesting, I think, as well. I had the pleasure to talk with them at the 2016 Forum for Native Students and Tribal Communities in Oklahoma City. And so I began by asking them to explain what is process communication and to give us a few examples of process communication.
A blueprint of how to reach every student. And we talk about 6 different kinds of students, and we have all of those students in our classrooms. But each one learns differently, is motivated differently, gets into trouble differently, and the strategy for inviting them out of distress is different. So that's what we teach.
So communication through understanding the motivation and the way that they hear things.
Right.
Okay.
But also the way we talk to them.
Oh, the way you talk to, right.
Right.
And it's predictable what each of those 6 types is going to do when they don't get their needs met and get into distress.
Interesting.
And there's a strategy of getting them out, there's a proactive strategy to keep them from getting into distress, and a reactive strategy, how to get them out with a single sentence, even when they're bouncing off the walls.
I want to hear more about this.
Well, maybe I'll introduce
we
you
start?
to one. I'll introduce you
Okay.
to one. One of the particular types we call a harmonizer. We're compassionate, sensitive, and warm. And we feel first. We take in and process information about people and things by the way we feel about them. We need to know that people like us for us. And we enjoy sensory things like flowers and music, bubble baths, scented candles. When we get into distress, we tend to put on a drooper mask, I'm not okay, and we make silly mistakes.
And another type is we call a rebel. And we rebels are creative, spontaneous, and playful. And because of miscommunication with our teachers, many of whom don't have a clue how to reach us, we had the list of kids who were dropping out of school. We're motivated by having fun. And we'll do anything for a teacher that we like. And if we don't like a teacher, in other words, if we're not having any fun in their class, we won't do anything for that teacher, regardless of the consequences. And I'd like to give you a little sample. We've talked about distress. Well, we talk about 3 levels of distress. And in first degree distress, we rebels are the ones that go, I don't get it. This is hard. You lost me with that one. And in second degree distress, we blame. If it weren't for these self-motivated, goal-oriented robots around this place, I could have some fun in this class.
Hey, how about having some fun?
Oh, all right, I'm with you.
Okay.
And that is how you invite us rebels out of second degree distress.
It was going down, wasn't it? It was.
Yes, it was.
Downhill.
Right.
And
Or
you turned it
sometime- yeah,
around.
some
I
kind
was
of
just
fun.
about to totally disrupt the class if she
To
had
get
not
some
intervened.
fun. To get something.
Yep.
Right, right.
Okay.
And another personality type we call thinker. We are responsible, logical, and organized. And we're probably some of your better students. We collect data. Information is very important to us. And our needs are to be recognized for our good work and our hard work. And also time. Time is very important for us. We need meetings to begin on time and end on time. And if there's going to be a change in schedule, we need to have a heads up so we can rearrange our day.
And you want,
When
if
we-
the thinker wants information.
They want
the
information.
things they need.
When we don't get our needs met, we may go into distress. And in second degree distress, we attack people for not thinking clearly. What's the matter? Don't you know how to think? You might hear us say.
Judy, I corrected your paper last night, and you got an A+. It was that was an outstanding
Thank you.
paper. It's one of the papers I've ever read.
Thank you very much.
Turned it around there.
Right.
And she's instantly
Appreciated.
out of second degree distress. And it is that easy to invite each of the 6 types out. But you saw how different the strategies were for the 2 types
Right.
that we just showed you.
And you could respond in a way that just made it worse if you didn't recognize that that was the need of that person.
That's right.
Right. Right. And there's 3 more types.
3 more. Okay.
If you want to find out more about them,
Okay.
we have a lot of information on our website.
Well, good. Can you give us that website?
www.kalercom.com.
K-
Kalercom.com.
Okay.
K-A-L-E-R-C-O-M. HLERCOM.com, KALERCOM.com.
All right.
Kaler is the name of the clinical psychologist who made all the discoveries.
And we also have a journal of process communication and that is available on our website. And about more than half of the papers are education related. There were 6 papers in the first issue, there were 8 in the second. The third issue will have 6 or 7 papers, and 4 or 5 of those are on education.
In a typical classroom, are you going to have?
You're going to have all of these.
All of
All
You're
of
going to
us,
have
we're
all
all
6.
going to be there.
Right. And
Yep.
there are ways to communicate and motivate each of those different.
Right.
That's right.
And one of the things we
And
tell
identify.
our student teachers is meet them at the door and give them a battery charge for their need as they come into your class. Then no matter what happened to them at home, on the way to school, in the previous class, in the hallways, in the lunchroom, on the playground, they're coming in to your class upbeat, energetic, ready to learn, and wanting to be there.
You've done a little reset right there at the door. Reset.
Yep. Savage said students that get their needs met seldom cause problems in the classroom because doing something that interferes with getting a need met is not in their self-interest.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're finding.
Exactly. Well, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. You've got to meet the needs and have them realize that this is good for me. This is a place for me.
We have teachers who have told us they haven't had a single discipline problem in their classroom since they started using these concepts. And as you said earlier, we've been doing this for 28 years. And some of them were early on in our class, and 25, 26, 27 years without a single discipline problem in their classroom.
In fact, we've had our daughter's teacher say, when I use these concepts, I'm not tired at the end of the day anymore.
You're not battling. It's
We're not
always
battling.
a battle.
Right.
Yep.
Everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I want to tell the viewers too, I believe you helped us put on a longer Solutions to the Dropout Crisis show a couple years ago.
About 2 years ago,
So
yeah.
that's on our website too. They can look at that and also go to your website or the website that can give more information about this process communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
you very
It's a
much.
pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here.
Right.
Oh, I really love seeing the Pauleys, and that connecting of intrinsic motivation to different personality types is really interesting. There's more than 3 though, aren't there?
Yes, Marty, I was going to say a couple of years ago, we actually produced an hour-long professional development Solutions to the Dropout show program on this process communication. So all 6 of the personalities are described in that. That show is archived on our website, and there are resources to go along with that as well. So I encourage if you're interested in more information on that topic, to visit our webcast page.
Yes, and those of you who think summer's a time to get off from work, you're going to be interested enough to check these out, I think. So moving on, though, it just keeps getting more better, if that's proper. It's not. But we're going to service learning, which is near and dear to my heart, as is our next presenter, Dr. Jean Strait, who is professor of education at Hamline University in St. Paul, Minnesota, and a long-time member of the National Dropout Prevention Network, and has been to every conference I can think of, and sharing her wisdom and expertise and experience in service learning. But she's come up with something new, and you're going to talk about that, I think.
Right. She wanted to talk with us in Oklahoma City. We talked with Jean about a new book she has out on e-service learning. E-service learning. So that's a little different way of looking at it, but the important thing is this service learning is a way for students to realize, make connections that they haven't made before to, what are their responsibilities as citizens and how they can get these opportunities through school.
I think why we're here today is talking about service learning and
Right.
some of those benefits. And I'm fortunate enough to have just been doing a lot of work with what's called e-service learning. And that's a collaboration of, if you're familiar with electronic learning, anything you may do online or any kind of combination, a hybrid class, what you might have, and service learning, where you're connecting service and learning, you're using your requirements for your class or some of the different outcomes you want to meet by also providing service within a community. And that's what service learning is. So if you take service learning and e-learning and you bring them together, you have e-service learning. So you can do service learning online, you can do service learning traditionally, or you can do a blend of a couple of different hybrids in between. We've come up with 4 different areas that we talk about for e-service learning.
Okay, well, I do want to hear about that, and I want you to talk a little bit about service learning and what that can do for students when they participate in, traditional service learning.
Well, it's profound, and it's life-changing, it's attitude-changing, and it's development changing for children, for the teachers, for the community partners. As I'm sure you know, because you're with the NDPC, it's one of the essential prevention strategies. Service learning helps to make connections that otherwise students might only read about in a book or see from a distance. The service gives that experiential learning that we need for young people, and that makes it so critical, because we know if we read something, if we don't use it within 30 days, do you know you lose it? It's gone. It might be in there somewhere, but you can't get it back.
Right.
But if you experience it, you have that memory system, and you can retrieve those memories and those emotions and those sounds and those people again and again and again. And so it's a way of learning that will help you remember all of these wonderful outcomes, these skills, these knowledges, and these strategies that we want kids to have, that's so essential for them to be successful as they get older.
And the connection with the community. And
Absolutely. Connection with the community is essential. How can I teach somebody about being a teacher if I don't have them out there in schools, working with schools? It's the same thing. How can you teach someone to be an engineer if they have no experience out there in the community understanding why things are put together the way they are?
So how does this work in E? You would think you would have to be, for sure, hands-on.
Well, thankfully, there's a couple of things that are really wonderful right now. We have technology, and technology can be both powerful and cumbersome, but it's developed so wonderfully now that you can use things online. So if I was going to do something with service learning online, perhaps something I might do is like what our students did with the kids in New Orleans, where we would do tutoring online. And so my college students were learning about teaching, but the way they did it is tutoring kids in New Orleans, who at the time didn't even have any schools open, because if you remember, Hurricane Katrina closed just about everything. Right. For some of them, that was the only learning connection they were getting until the schools were back up and running again.
So there was significant service learning.
Yes, wonderful service to the community. The students are learning what they need to learn. My students are also learning what they need to learn. So absolutely wonderful experience.
So you say there are 4?
There are 4 areas in e-service learning. What we did is we have 4 different hybrids. We first of all talk about our traditional service learning. Traditional service learning has been face-to-face, where if I'm studying to be a teacher, I might be directly in the school. Well, we can do that, but we also can enhance that with different parts of technology. So maybe students would email their mentor back and forth. What I'm finding, though, in a lot of cases is that the students' knowledge of technology is actually higher than what some of the researchers are, and the students went to use the phones over any kind of website or email. I mean, they do Snapchat, or they do Twitter, or they're texting one another. And they text me as well, so I'm learning a whole new language through text. But that would be the traditional, the hybrid one. The hybrid 2 is where you're still doing things face-to-face, but you're doing the service online. And that would be very similar to what we were doing in New Orleans, where even though we were here face-to-face, we were doing the service online with the students. A hybrid 3 is now, it's where you change where you're doing things. With a hybrid 3, you're teaching online, but your service is within the community of where your organization might be. So let's say, for example, at Hamlin, where I teach, I would be teaching an online class. but I wanted my students to provide service. And I could have the local community around Hamlin in St. Paul be the area where students would be providing service. That's the 3. And then 4 is where both your service and your instruction is online. And so you're teaching an online course, plus you have them providing some kind of service online. And my colleague, Leora Waldner, does a wonderful job of this, where she has her students, they are working on various marketing proposals, and they have the students actually do service by writing marketing proposals for new businesses within their community. And also, as they're learning about marketing, their Marketing 101 class, or whatever that might be, that entire class is online. So you have the content and the service online. So those are the 4 different areas we have with e-service learning.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Well, it's wonderful to have the 4 different areas, but it's also, it can be daunting trying to figure out where you are and what you want to do. So first you have to decide what is it that you want to teach, and what kind of service is going to be most beneficial for your students to get that experience. And more importantly, how will the community and community partners benefit from that service?
Yeah.
Because if they won't benefit from it, it's not service learning.
Need-driven, yeah.
Right.
Right. Well, we've touched on these 4 ways to do e-service learning and service learning. How can people find out more information?
Oh, well, there's a wonderful book.
Now, did you write this?
I did.
Okay.
I wrote this book with my colleague, Catherine Nordyke, and she is at Missouri State. And we have done a lot of research on this. This just came out this past fall. And I can be contacted at Hamlin. They can contact me through the National Dropout Prevention Center. This book is from Stylist Publishing. And so I know John Van Noring does a lot of publication work with their Stylist Publishing website, so they can find it there. And while people are at the conference here today, I even have little flyers I can give them for 20% off.
Okay, so, deal, huh?
Always helping them.
And I'm sure there are examples in there.
There's the explanation of the 4 different kinds in here. Then the second part of the book gives you some examples. And then the third part of the book goes through and talks about what some of the challenges might be, where do we think some of these things are going, and how to contact any of us about any of the different kind of models.
Okay.
I've been fortunate to have many of my colleagues write different chapters within this book, talking about models that they're trying and that they are experimenting with and that they're using.
We will definitely put a link to that information in our service learning resources on the website.
Thank you. Well, e-service learning maybe wouldn't even have been born if it hadn't have been for the NDPC. It was something I was thinking about at one of your conferences back in 2004.
Well, it's a great way to engage youth in learning and engage them in school and the joy of learning.
Absolutely, and enhance their skills.
And enhance their skills, exactly. Thank you, Dr. Strait.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, Jean, that was so great. I can't wait to get the copy of that book. You know, Karen, there's no greater strategy for developing intrinsic motivation, in my humble opinion, than service learning. And so I surely advocate that everybody look not only at e-service learning, but all the different kinds that she talked about. That was a great to see Jean again. Okay, there is another way of reaching kids that's a pretty powerful intrinsic motivator, and that's in our last segment. Tell us about that one.
In our final segment, we learn about another way to engage students, and that is through music. J. Ross Parrelli was also in Oklahoma City when we were there, and she's a recording artist who has an organization named Beats, Lyrics, Leaders. And she works with students to empower them through music. Lynn Dunlap, the Public Information Director at the National Dropout Prevention Center, was able to spend some time talking to J. Ross about this organization and how she uses it to teach children that they have the power, and she does this through music. Lynn began this interview by asking J. Ross where she got the name for the organization Beats, Lyrics, Leaders.
We've actually got it from our students. So I've been teaching Beats, Lyrics, Leaders for about 3 years, and we offer conferences, 3-day conferences, 5-day conferences, workshops, speaking engagements, rallies, And when we spoke with our students, we asked them, what do you want to know? What do you care about when we talk about math? What can we teach you through math without utilizing the actual mathematics system?
Okay.
And they came up with things like beats. We want to learn to make beats.
Okay.
And through beat making, we've been able to show them mathematical equations that have helped them through their math classes without even touching math.
How interesting.
So when we asked them what they wanted to learn, it was poetry, which is where we got our lyrics. And then leaders I just added because the goal is to actually turn these students into leaders. Whether they end up as musicians or not, that's who's to say, except for their passion. And but they can take these skills with them anywhere they go.
And your program, if I understand correctly, has a very strong mentoring aspect. Talk to me about how you develop the mentors and what the relationships are with the students in the program.
Wow, great question. Our mentors we found from all over the United States. So all of our mentors are thoroughly passionate about what they do. We have mentors, well, let me take this back a little bit. Our Beats, Lyrics, and Leaders is not just about music, but it's about business, it's about arts, it's about developing culture. So we found experts in those areas, and then we use those as our mentors to our students. So depending on, we do mainly work with reservations, but we also work with foster youth, at-risk youth, any youth really that just wants to empower themselves. And through our mentors, they are able to discover what they're passionate about.
Okay.
So we've had a young lady who is really into fashion design.
Okay.
We found Christopher Bevins, who used to work with Pharrell in the Billionaires Boys Club. And if you say this amongst the youth, they're like, oh my gosh, BBC, Pharrell, you know, but he's actually such an incredible, humble human being that he's taught our students what it is to be a fashion consultant.
Oh.
So we use mentors that are in this, they're already doing what these kids want to do.
That sounds so very fascinating, and I'm sure the kids are just in awe of the mentors that they are paired with. That's interesting. Your program encompasses so many of the 15 effective strategies for dropout prevention, including active learning and individualized instruction. But it's the out-of-school opportunity that caught my attention, particularly the Artist Development Program. And I understand that you are organizing a second Artist Development Program. Can you talk to me a little bit about the success of the first one and what your vision is for the second one?
Yes. Our first Artist Development Program ran 16 months, and we actually had 12 youth that they wanted to be a part of this, so they filled out applications. Some of the youth we'd been working with for a couple years or had met them at previous conferences. So that program was called Setting the Stage.
Okay.
And our whole goal was to set the stage for life skills, whatever it was that they could take with them on the road to be a successful individual. And we don't define success for them. They define success for themselves. So our program was to have them sit down, figure out what their goals were, and we took them through training to figure out what their goals were, then sit down and figure out what they're passionate about, and then figure out how we could use that to develop them as people. So we use the term artist development, but really, just don't tell anybody, it's personal development.
Yeah, so you're tapping into their inherent motivation and making it work for them. That's what an excellent idea.
Empowering. Our whole goal is to empower. And not just the student, but the communities. So the students we worked with, our first 12 students were all from Oregon. We got help from the Oregon Arts Commission. They actually were, we received a grant from them, as well as the Meyer Foundation. And through these grants, we were able to offer 4 conferences throughout the year. And the first conference was held in Portland, and it was an introduction conference, and through there we had got some music together. So for the second conference, we were able to record everything that they put together. By the third conference, we were able to provide a business strategy for them. And everything from how to budget to what is it you actually need just to throw an event. Then the fourth conference was them performing and showcasing everything they learned.
So you had a product to show.
Amazing. It was amazing. And the success rate, just as far as their own individual happiness, which we can't evaluate that in our school system.
That's right.
You don't have a test. There's no child left behind test for happiness, you know, but these children, their level of community service, community involvement, their grades increased. Some of them ended up with jobs that they would have never had by the end of this. And now we're actually using those mentees, as we call them, to be our mentors for our next 16-month artist development program.
And how does one apply to become a part of your artist development program?
Well, that's a great question. If you go to beatslyricsleaders.com, there is actually a contact form on there, and we are already having students reach out to us to be a part of this program.
Wonderful. So that's that in itself is an endorsement of the success of the program initially.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And we've opened it up now past Oregon. So we've had sponsors, national sponsors, so we can actually have students from everywhere.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, your passion's obvious. Where does your passion come from for this program?
Oh, wow. You know, it's a really interesting question, because initially I would say it came from music and just wanting to be a better musician. I tour a lot, so when I'm not doing these conferences, I'm actually on the road touring with my own musicians and my own band. But I think deep down, my father's always been a community leader. My mom's always been a compassionate human being, and taking those together, combined with my love for music, formed what this was.
So you're giving back what was given to you. What a wonderful, wonderful thing.
I think it's a blessing, you know, to see that I've been raised with such opportunities that a lot of students don't have. And in acknowledging that, it's up to me to provide those opportunities to other students who don't have it.
Oh, what a
it's
wonderful
just what
mission.
we have to do as humans.
Well, one more question then. How do educators then engage students using media such as music to get them to develop theories or practices with real life issues? How does music tie in?
Well, besides the fact that you can't go anywhere without hearing music, I mean, music is everywhere. And if teachers aren't utilizing that as a tool in their classroom, they really need to. You can learn anything from civil movements to literacy to even mathematical equations through music. And it's as simple as programs like YouTube. And students can film their own music video on their iPhone. I've seen them do this, edit it themselves on YouTube, and then put it up within 2 hours. You know, so it's like we have the tools now to make this accessible to everybody, to make music accessible. GarageBand is another one that I love and teach to the teachers. We'll actually be learning in the seminar tomorrow how to use GarageBand, and that's as easy as you can make a instrumental, a beat right there on your iPad. Then you can lay down your lyrics right on top of that. So you're having math, poetry, and whatever you're writing about, which could be a civil rights movement or whatever it is. Food, we talk about the healthy food and healthy eating. And then record it through YouTube and make a music video right then and there.
And so the students then get the satisfaction of seeing that product just within the 2 hours, as you said. So they get this sense of self-satisfaction and their confidence is built up. And then they're ready to progress perhaps to another. Is that the premise behind it?
That's the premise. And then you're also teaching these students how to use media correctly. You know, because I think another problem is that our teenagers are using 9 hours of their day on media.
Wow.
9 hours, that's more than they sleep. They're spending more time on media than they are anything else. And I'm not telling teachers, well then put it in your classroom and add another hour. Now they're on 10 hours. But I'm saying show them how to properly use media, because no one's teaching media etiquette. And so if these students are using media properly, then they have their music video. The next step is then teach them how to promote that. How do you promote that in a safe environment? How do you build a media community, a social media community, and where you can show expression, where, you know, I think no matter what, you're going to have that fear of, oh, what if we get haters, or what if there's a bully, or, but I think that's everywhere. That's like you saying, what if I get in a car accident? You know, I mean, things happen, but it's the resilience that we're teaching them through the music itself that helps them through that.
You've brought up an interesting point with the bullies and all. Do you teach them to be prepared that that could be a possibility? Do you ever say this could happen and this could be how you would choose to address this? Is that a part of your curriculum?
It has come up. I kind of let the students make the curriculum as we go.
Okay.
So that has been an issue where one of the students actually lost their confidence because of what was going on the websites. And it's just a matter of building that resilience.
Yes.
It's a matter of showing them you're making this music for a reason. And look at even the most popular Justin Timberlake, or you know, any musical band has haters. It's just part of life.
Yes.
It's how do we get past that? So no matter what, you're going to have people come against you. We're going to fail.
Yeah.
So we just have to teach them how to get back up.
It's part of those life skills that you were referring to earlier. Very interesting. Well, we have just had a wonderful discussion with J. Ross Parrelli of Beats, Lyrics, and Leaders. Thank you again for being a part of this discussion, and I look forward to your session tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I loved that segment. I loved it. Music is such a great motivator. I will allow that it's maybe the second best after service learning. Oh, that was terrific.
And what a great way to use technology.
Yes. GarageBand. I've tried that once. It's kind of fun. But for students to be able to put those layers on and create something really professional, wow, very motivating, very motivating. And wow, what a great group of network members. Aren't we lucky to have such wonderful people out there sharing their good work with all of us? So do you think we should do this again next month?
Oh, definitely. We have some more film.
Oh, you have some more to share. So we're going to be back in July to show this program with 3 or 4 new segments, and more network members for you to meet. So Karen, I've enjoyed having you with me.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
Look forward to seeing you next time, and look forward to seeing all of you next time for Solutions to the Dropout Crisis Special Summer Edition.